Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. As we take a look at the weather on this day before Thanksgiving, I'm going to move myself over to the other side. I thought I'd give you a couple of different satellite views tonight, satellite loops, and this is a little bit weird to look at because it's got the curvature of the Earth, but you can see a few things going on. First off, we can look and see that storm that affected the Northeast over the last couple of days has now moved a little bit further to the northeast and is sitting just moving off New Brunswick, between New Brunswick and Newfoundland, and affecting southeastern Canada. There's moisture going up in that direction. Down here we have Hurricane Otto, which we'll look at a little closer, and you can see the Midwestern system that is starting to push to the east. But the weather in the east is dry, and when we look at the close-up satellite view up and down the eastern seaboard, the weather is very good. So if you are flying, say, down to Florida for Thanksgiving, or the Carolinas or Georgia, or driving down perhaps to Virginia, or driving up into New England, you're not going to have any weather problems at all on this Thanksgiving. Now, we are going to see some precipitation today in parts of the Midwest, but it's not really all that well organized. And as it moves eastward, this system is going to be weakening. And some of that moisture is going to get into the Northeast on Thanksgiving Day, starting from the early morning hours as it moves across the Northeast through Pennsylvania and then New York State. But the precipitation with that looks to be on the light side and really not that problematic. Now, for those of you that are out west, we have a storm that's off the Pacific coast, and that's driving in a front to the Pacific Northwest. And there we have some rain and some snow that's going to be spreading inland into parts of the westernmost Rockies. And you can see the tail end of the system that is moving out of the southern and central plain states and moving northeastward to the Great Lakes. Again, nothing well organized, and we do not have any kind of major storms to look at for Wednesday, the big travel day, and for Thursday, for Thanksgiving Day. In fact, let me give you a view here of the surface map for tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. And you can see high pressure is still controlling the weather in the east, and it's dry pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard. You can see there's some rain back over through Ohio and Indiana, parts of Kentucky, a little bit extending down into Alabama and Mississippi. Nothing especially heavy. And the snow that's going on across the northern Great Lakes, also nothing especially heavy. Dry throughout much of the plain states down through Texas. We've got snow up in the northern Rockies through Idaho and western Montana, parts of Utah and Nevada. And then you have that system that's coming into the Pacific Northwest, producing some rain from coastal northern California along the coast up to Oregon and Washington, with a little bit of snow inland. So, as we said, pretty uneventful. Let's jump over to Otto. Where are you? I lost you. Well, that's the goes east shot again. So let me just try and find it. I thought I pulled up Hurricane Otto, and here it is. Okay, so there's Hurricane Otto. It's gotten stationary again overnight. It's out or drifting very, very slowly to the west. There's some wind shear some strong wind shear going on nearby, but it seems to be trapped in this environment here. The Hurricane Center is forecasting this to go into Costa Rica, which may make this the first hurricane to go into Costa Rica since 1851, believe it or not. But these systems, this particular hurricane, this is the latest that we've ever seen one in the southern Caribbean since Hurricane Martha back in 1969. This is going to move to the west, probably going to cross out to the other side of the Pacific. It might even still be a tropical storm when it does that, so that would be pretty unusual if that were to happen. So let's jump over to the surface map and show you what we expect as we go through the next couple of days. And you can see as we get into Thanksgiving morning, there's a little bit of snow going on in upstate New York, and then it moves up into New England, but it's mostly light, and the precipitation that affects the coast here, New Jersey to Long Island, some rain showers with that. So there'll be some showers that'll move through. And then another low is going to try and form on Friday night into Saturday. That looks like most of that now is going to be offshore. It doesn't produce much rain, although it does bring back a stick of moisture into New England on Sunday. And I'm going to be up there, so I'm in New Hampshire, so I'm hoping I get to see some snow while I'm there. The GFS does show that. Meanwhile, we'll back out in the west. This system comes in to the west and begins to organize a bit as it goes into Nebraska, spread some snows up through Wyoming and parts of Colorado. You can also see there's some precipitation that occurs back through Nevada and even some snows into Southern California. There's a shot of cold air that moves down the coast there and eventually moves into Arizona. This next low takes us to Sunday night, and still a little bit of snow in coastal New England, but now we're seeing an area of rain break out through Iowa and northern Missouri. That low goes pretty far west. I mean, it just pretty much heads up into Minnesota. So places that got a blizzard a little less than a week ago are going to wind up getting mostly rain out of this, with some snow back through the Dakotas. And then a cold front is going to set up with this, and you'll see it here. I'll just draw it in for you. A fairly strong cold front is going to set up here along about Tuesday. So you have a pretty large area of rain. And for drought areas in particular, the areas down in the southeast might be able to tap into some of that tropical moisture that gets involved to some degree as it moves to the east. So that might be some good news with some much needed rain to occur there. And you can see it does swing in rain later Tuesday into early Wednesday, and it brings it right through the Carolinas and Georgia and then eventually offshore. Now, once that goes by, there's going to be colder air that's going to come down on northwest winds into the northeast, and that's going to chill things down for the latter part of next week. But we don't see anything coming out from the west at this point that's going to impact the weather as we start the month of December. There's some light action going on in parts of Montana, a little bit back through Utah and Nevada, and then we have some snow and rain coming into Oregon and Washington. And that's just about it from that standpoint. This is going to be, I think, one of these situations where we're going to just have to watch even closer every run because eventually energy is going to try to come in and do something. I have a feeling that sometime through the first couple of weeks of December that something's going to happen somewhere. Now, I don't necessarily believe what the model is showing here with a low going up into Michigan and then gradually redeveloping off the mid-Atlantic coast and moving out. It doesn't quite look right to me, but it does express the idea of the blocking pattern that we have that might force something to go a little further south. You have higher pressures up into southeastern Canada here, so that's going to tend to keep things colder in the northeast. But whether this system is real or not remains to be seen. I can't make the dot with the question mark. Okay, so we'll have to see how this all plays out. When we look at the upper air, and I'll put that up for you here. And I'm getting better switching from map to map, but you can still see the blockiness that is on the map. We'll back it up. You know, you've got the main jet is so far to the south. Now here's that system that comes in for Tuesday, but you know, if you look up into the northern areas, you still have, you know, above normal heights, which is what we refer to. These lines are heights, how high you have to go into the atmosphere to achieve the pressure of 500 millibars. That's where the level we look at for the jet stream. And you have a strong jet that comes into the Pacific, so you keep getting these weather systems that are just sort of moving along in the flow, and they're being displaced further south because of what's going on in the higher pressures that are tending to build up to the north in Canada. But over time, it's still the same story here. There really isn't too much change. Canada seems to be in flux. You still have a lot of weather systems that are going to be moving across. This is at the end of the period, and again, it's highly suspect and certainly highly subject to change, but you do have a lot of weather systems that are going to be trying to come across in this flow. So it's going to be a matter of watching to see what happens with the jet stream overall and how it evolves over time. These things are never easy. It's sort of looking like a jigsaw puzzle that was thrown down on the table with thousands of pieces, and you're trying to figure out and you work out one area, you work out the edges first, and then you kind of work your way, inward. It's very hard with all of this going on. You still have this tendency for higher pressures to build up toward the northern latitudes. So that's going to mean that the North Atlantic oscillation is probably going to stay negative pretty much for the next 2 weeks. So it's a matter of what else happens and what else gets repaired in terms of the temperature profile in Canada. Speaking of which, we'll finish off tonight and we'll just look at the 2-meter temperature anomalies, showing us where ground temperatures are above or below normal. And we still have a tendency, there seems to be in these last several runs a decrease in the area of above normal in Canada and a gradual increase in below normal temperatures. But again, we don't see anything too well organized. It's not like we see a large area of below normal temperatures like we see here, gradually growing and extending southeastward. It kind of appears, and then it changes shape over time. It's below normal throughout much of the west. It's kind of near normal here later in the period in the eastern part of the United States. But I'm going to tell you right now, as we look at further model runs, we're going to probably see this change a number of times, as I'm sure you're now getting used to after seeing these videos and seeing how the weather changes over time. This is not a simple proposition by any stretch of the imagination. So I really hope that you have a very safe travel day if you are driving around. Just bear in mind where the precipitation areas are for today. But you should not, if you're watching from the east, you should not have any problems. If you're watching these videos from this middle of the country, you should not have any problems. You can see where the pockets of rain and snow are, and there's no major storms here for anyone to deal with. So have a safe travel day on your Wednesday if you're headed for your Thanksgiving destination, and enjoy your Thanksgiving day, your Thanksgiving holiday. Thanksgiving is probably my favorite of all the holidays because you basically show up and you eat, and if you can tolerate your family in the meantime, that's also a positive. I'll be updating the weather on my websites, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com, nycweathernow.com, and SS Storm Chasers with next big storm. Of course, they'll be on patrol, and they're snow watching now, as I am. Have a great Wednesday and a great holiday.